There are a lot of protests out the front of Parliament House. It's an obvious symbolic area in which to try to draw attention from people right around the country to a particular plight. This one, though, is getting a lot more numbers than usual, and many of them have come a long way. They're protesting the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. They want to can the plan, in their words. They are meeting as well with the two ministers responsible, David Littleproud and Susan Lee, this afternoon. At least some of this big group, plenty of them coming in trucks a long way from Murray-Darling Basin, including from Victoria and New South Wales. But their passion for the moment, however perhaps civil the meetings are this afternoon, the passion was on full display a short time ago out the front of Parliament House, out the front entrance here. A clear sign of the frustration out there being felt. Remember, a lot of these people are being affected by drought. They feel the Murray-Darling Basin Plan is exacerbating that. We'll get into a little bit more detail on that in a moment. First of all, though, One Nation was down there at this protest today, Pauline Hanson and Malcom Roberts. He asked this question of the Agriculture Minister, Bridget McKenzie. Listen out as well to the interjection from the public gallery.
Minister, as Agriculture Minister who fails to help her agriculture, whether on her own account or due to her party, is by any definition a failure. Will you resign?
Senator McKenzie.
Order. Order in the galleries. Order in the galleries.
Please remove that gentleman. Attendance. That's utterly inappropriate behaviour.
Your party seeks to stop free trade agreements, which have led to...
Sorry, Senator McKenzie. Is someone going to own up there, have the courage to own up? Are you going to have the courage to own up, or are you going to hide behind... All right, please, can we please remove the gentleman? This is not inappropriate. It's utterly inappropriate. It is completely disrespectful to your fellow citizens to behave that way.
Pretty unusual stuff in the Senate, those sort of obscenities being offered there. Now, we don't know who said it. Clearly there was a group angry at the government and on the side of the question being asked by Malcom Roberts there. Presumably some of the people who have come here to protest. We don't know who said that out loud about the minister. Nonetheless, the passion here is certainly on display. And we do know there are demands being made of the government. Now, this is a difficult situation. The Murray-Darling Basin Plan has never been described as perfect by the people that came up with it, by the various sides of this. Remember, the two main ones are farmers and irrigators on one side and those concerned about the environment on the other. This was hatched to make sure enough water would flow through the Murray-Darling Basin system, to make sure it does remain healthy and vibrant for all sorts of reasons, including for the species there and the river system generally, the quality of drinking water as well. You do as well want to make sure that farmers and irrigators can get enough water for their crops. This was the grand compromise that had been struck. It is under particular strain right now because of drought. There is less water available for both sides of that, well, sometimes debate, perhaps part of just the general push and pull. What farmers are saying today, having spoken to a few of them out the front, is not necessarily to ditch the plan entirely, despite the can the plan moniker. They recognise the environment is important. They believe the situation right now is being mismanaged. The plan itself doesn't have enough flexibility, that the water being used isn't satisfying either of those two sides, that it's not just a drought causing these issues. Two of those farmers here today are Carly Marriott and Lachlan Marshall. Carly is a farming mother of 3 kids and Lachlan runs a dairy farm near Deniliquin. They both say they've been negatively impacted by the Basin Plan and they're pleading for changes. Carly Marriott, thanks for your time. Can you tell us, first of all, your experience, what your issue is with the Murray-Darling Basin Plan?
Yeah, thank you. Our issue with the Murray-Darling Basin Plan is that it's based on incorrect scientific evidence, and it's actually not delivering on the triple bottom line. It's failing the economy of the country, it's failing our environment, and it's also failing our people. And as you can see here, this is a peaceful protest of the families that are really feeling the effect of this Murray-Darling Basin Plan. And it goes beyond farmers. We're not just farmers, there's people in small towns, there's environmentalists here, there's camping and fishing enthusiasts. So this is bigger than just a group of whinging farmers.
I've seen the signs can the plan. I mean, what do you need to replace it? Because we can't just have a free-for-all nothing. What's needed? A reform? Yep. A whole new plan?
So we need to have the federal government acknowledge that the plan is not okay, and they keep pushing through with this terrible catchline of deliver it in full and on time. And that's insanity, because they're killing the communities out there. We need to stop it. We need to review it, revise it, and we have the solutions. They know that we have the solutions. We've put it to them that many times in that many different ways, and they will not listen. So Little Proud wouldn't listen when we had a rally in Tocumwal. Susan Lay, Minister for the Environment, and our local member for Farrer, she wouldn't listen when we had a rally in Albury. And so here we are on their front doorstep, and we're going to deliver those solutions to them. We have a delegation going in to talk to them, and we're going to be heard, and we're not leaving until we get the water.
Is there an element of a drought like this is always going to mean some less water for the environment and for farmers, that neither side's going to be happy or thriving?
Well, when you say drought, you're referring to a natural drought. So when it doesn't rain, that's a drought, and we understand that. The drought that we're referring to is a man-made drought, so this is gross mismanagement of water on the federal government's behalf. And we should be able to help our farmers to the north when there is a drought, because we have irrigation infrastructure and expertise, and we can be growing hay, we can be growing grain and fodder, and we can be helping to alleviate the stress and the angst and the despair that those in the real drought are experiencing, and we can't.
Is that part of the message? It's better use of water, because would you agree it's dangerous to say, well, look, we don't need to worry about the environment because it's drought, it's all about farmers?
Farmers will never say don't worry about the environment, because we make our living from the environment. So we are the best probably custodians of the land that you're going to find. I don't know many people in the city that want to come out and care for the environment to the extent that we do. So we just need to understand the difference between what the politicians are saying and what's happening in the real world, because when they use the term environmental flows, that is just a gimmick to try and sway voters to believe that they are looking after the environment. And in actual fact, they're not. They're killing forests, and there's native grasses out there that are dying because of environmental flows, but they're selling it as if they're helping the environment. And the water can be managed better. We know how to manage water. We know how to manage natural resources. So for God's sakes, listen.
Lachlan, thanks for your time.
No problems.
You're a dairy farmer. Talk us through your issues with the Murray-Darling Basin Plan.
Yeah, look, for me it's quite simple. It's failing in three areas. It's failing for the communities, it's failing for the environment, and it's failing for agriculture at the moment. We've seen wanted waste of water in trying to deliver end-of-system outcomes that are just unattainable.
What's a specific example, if you not a broad one, but on-the-ground one, of how you're saying water's not used well?
I suppose the easiest way is to have a look at the Barmer Choke and have a look what's happening there. And that water that they're trying to shove down to the Sunraysia and down to South Australia is forcing the river to run at minor flood levels. So the Barmer Choke is 7,500 megs a day, and they're putting 15,000 megs a day down it. That water spills up and out and over the banks and evaporates. It gets lost, it evaporates away, it floods into private property, it breeds carp, it destroys the riverbanks. We've seen damage done to the platypus dens, to cod holes in the bottom of the river. We've seen bird species, kingfishers nesting destroyed. Even the Millawa forest, where a sacred Indigenous site, they had to exhume bodies from the Indigenous site because it's underwater.
Is this the plan failing or really badly managed? Because I don't think you'd see in the plan, let's send water down too quickly and flood a system that otherwise would be flowing at a normal level.
The plan sets the guidelines for the MDBA to operate under. So there is the plan is, with its lack of flexibility in it, and the goals that it has set, has led the MDBA to behave in a certain way. And they are ticking off their boxes and hitting their end-of-system goals and doing a very good job in their eyes, but at the same time they're destroying the Murray Valley in rural Australia.
Because we've got Can the Basin Plan as the signage. I think they're selling T-shirts as well. you obviously need a system of rules for water. Is the broad concept of we need to manage environmental flows and we need to manage irrigators okay, but it's just the structure and the detail of it that's the issue?
The inflexibility that's in the plan at the moment, and it's something that the community has been trying to bring to the government's attention since the plan's inception. And what we're seeing is that inflexibility and that willingness to just stick to that box checking, what it's doing to the rural community at the moment and the way it's destroying people's lives. You know, the Millennium Drought, there was no water in the dam, so there was no flows down the river, and we were in a drought. And we knew that when it rained, that water would be in the dam again and things would return to normal. This time around, there was 80% in the dam, and due to the plan and the mismanagement of that water, any potential for us to see an allocation was lost. It was evaporated and wasted. Quite simply, if we just took those losses that went out and spilled into the forest and held them against the environment's account, we could return those losses to consumptive use, which would be enough to see irrigators and communities be able to survive through the drought, produce food, fibre and fodder for other people who can't, and would see hard-working, honest Australians be able to hang on to their livelihoods, whether that be small business in town or whether that be on the land itself.
Is there always an aspect of once there is a pretty significant drought that there are going to be strains on the environment, farmers and irrigators worse off? It's just the extent that we're talking about, the way that's handled.
Yeah, look, a drought, a natural drought is a natural drought. This is a man-made drought for us. We're seeing more than...
Or both, because there's natural drought as well.
There is natural drought as well, but our system was created to mitigate drought. That's why the dams were created, why Dartmouth and Hume were built, was to help insulate against drought. It's why irrigation communities exist. It's so that when there is no rainfall, we're able to irrigate and be able to still produce food, fibre and fodder to feed the nation. And what we've seen now is that that priority's been shifted away, and that unrealistic outcomes are trying to be achieved, and that's at the cost of good, hard-working people, and it's the cost of Australia's food security. We just need to take the time to pause the plan and fix the issues that are with it and then move forward. We absolutely need a framework, but we need to can this version that we have right now, and we need to find something that works, that trip and bottom line.
Lachlan Johnson, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
So they were the views of a couple of farmers at the front of Parliament a short time ago, earlier today. They are a pretty uniform set of views, I can tell you as well, speaking to the various people down there. What was One Nation doing down there? Malcom Roberts and also Pauline Hanson, they say they are sympathetic to the plight of the farmers. So what exactly are they offering them beyond, of course, showing them they can apparently drive around a tractor? I spoke with the One Nation leader earlier today. Senator, thanks for your time. What's your message today to the people concerned about the Murray-Darling Basin Plan?
One Nation has not given up on them like the other political parties have. It's about finding the right answers to deal with the problem of lack of water. I think the states need to answer a lot of questions with regards to how they've handled the Murray-Darling Basin Plan and the environmental flow that needs to be addressed. People here are suffering. We've actually done an extensive tour of the Murray-Darling, and Malcolm spent a lot of time just recently about, again, the Murray-Darling Basin. I don't believe the federal government should be buying back those licences at a cost of $13 billion.
The part of this message has been can the plan. Don't you need to replace it with something? It's a pretty complex issue. We know the health of the system is also important. Is your message just that you're going to can it or work on a replacement or reforms?
That's what the people have come here for, because they're desperate now that they want the government to do something about it. We see it on the floor of Parliament for the last few years. It's toing and froing. Maybe there should be a Royal Commission into the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. Why were licences sold to foreign interests? Why is there ownership of water in the hands of foreign ownership? Why did Howard separate water from land? Why was the Water Act brought into place? The Murray-Darling Basin was actually an agreement brought in about 1915, so it has been in place, but because of the governments, what they've done with it, we're in the state that we are now.
Do you concede that with less rain there's always going to be pressure because irrigators and farmers have less rain, and so does the system itself, that the environmental aspect is also important?
Of course it is very important as well, but you cannot allow the people and communities to be devastated and losing their lifeblood, and trying to get water for their crops that they're trying to grow. When we see people wanting to push water to keep the mouth open in South Australia, that's ridiculous. ridiculous. So when we see so much water that's flowing down, what about the Barmate choke? You know, people have said that because they've flooded that area with environmental flows, that it's not helping the red gums. So there's a lot of problems there. You can't keep burying it or think that they're dealing with the issue. They can't. They don't know what to do. And where's David Littleproud? Why isn't he here to talk to the people and front the people here? And that's what they're angry about.
The other thing too is we have to stop talking about environment or farming, because a lot of the farming water goes into the environment. The wildlife around a farm is phenomenal, and we've got to stop demonising farmers, because farmers are the lifeblood of this country. That's where the food comes. You don't have farms in cities, but you don't have cities without farms.
David Littleproud is, my understanding, meeting with the people this afternoon, so I suppose we'll see what comes out of that. Are you careful not to try to sort of talk about easy solutions? Because in a drought, it does become difficult, this situation with water in Australia.
Don't underestimate my ability to come up with solutions to problems. It was my solution about the offshore processing. It was my solution, temporary protection visas. My solution about deportation of those with a 12-month jail term. You know, to do with even buying up the land for Singapore military. A lot of things. Even my solution about apprenticeship schemes in Australia. So they've taken a lot of my policies, my ideas over the years, and don't give me one shred of credit for it. The fact is that it's about working, it's about listening to the grassroots Australians to come up with a solution with it, because I tell you, this place hasn't got the answers to it. How long has this been going on about the Murray-Darling Basin Plan? What's happened with it? Absolutely nothing.
Can I just ask you finally, Senator, how are relations right now between you and the government?
I will look at bills, Malcom and I. We're a team. We will look at bills based on its merit, and do I think it's right for the country in Australia? And I have always said that. I will always say it. They've done me over. Both sides have done me over badly. But you know what? I keep coming back, and I will always say it. I will look at it, what I think is right for this country and the people. So I don't do deals and sell my soul like a lot of the other pricks in this place, because this is about the people. That's why they're here now, because they felt they've not been listened to.
But you didn't go back on your word in any way in that agreement? Was there any? Was there undertaking in text or anything?
No. I can tell you honestly, they never ever had my agreement that I would actually back that bill at any time.
Correct.
I worked with them towards the amendments, because it would actually help if the amendments were up. If Jackie Lambie were to vote for it, they had no idea whether Jackie Lambie was going to vote for it or not. They had no idea whether I would or not. They were actually presumed I would because of the amendments I got through. But if I didn't vote for the bill and Jackie did, then it was softening the bill with my amendments. The whole fact is, and I've said this before, when you look at the white collar crime that is happening in Australia, they are not dealing with that in white collar crime as they are trying to do with the unions. There is a place for unions in Australia, and as I said to the unions, let's give the unions a chance to get rid of their rogues in there.
The union's not getting rid of John Setka though, are they?
I've sent a warning shot across the bows of the unions, and they told me in negotiations they don't like these rogues that are in there as well. Well, it's about time they started cleaning it up. And I'll tell the people this. I voted with the government on the ABCC bill. It was my vote and Malcolm's vote that gave them the ABCC bill. And Senator Reynolds hasn't got a bloody clue what she's talking about when she says about the 30% increase in the construction. That was dealt with in the ABCC bill. And also I helped them pass the ROCS bill, which was to deal with it as well. How many more organisations do they want to set up to try and deal with the unions? How many times do we see bills come back in this place because they weren't structured properly in the first place?